Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Two Brain Cells, where we explore fascinating moments in history. I'm your host, Karlton, and right here with me is Katherine. And today we'll be diving into the story of the New Deal.
Today we're going to explore the main events about the New Deal, a crucial moment in history that changed the course of America's way of handling things.
What led to the New Deal, you may be wondering, and how did it impact the world as we know it? Let's find out.
To understand the New Deal, we first need to go back to the year of 1929. The New Deal was a series of domestic programs introduced by President Franklin D. Roosevelt in an attempt to end the economic ravages of the Great Depression. President Franklin Roosevelt launched the New Deal after taking office in 1933. It consisted of a variety of government-funded programs aimed at getting people back to work, as well as legislation and executive orders that propped up farmers and stimulated business activity. You may be wondering, was the New Deal a success? The economy did slowly recover during the 1930s. Confidence was restored to the banking system through federal deposit insurance. Working conditions were improved and labor unions strengthened the hand of workers.
The New Deal was a sweeping package of public work projects, federal regulations, and financial system reforms that the United States federal government enacted to help the nation survive and recover from the Great Depression of the 1930s. The New Deal programs created jobs and provided financial support for the unemployed, young, and elderly, and added safeguards and constraints to the banking industry and monetary system.
Purpose of the New Deal programs, mostly enacted during the first two terms of presidential Franklin D. Roosevelt. Between 1933 and 1938, the New Deal was implemented through legislation enacted by Congress and presidential executive orders. The programs addressed what historians call the 3 R's of dealing with the Depression: relief, recovery, and reform. Relief for the poor and jobless, recovery of the economy, and reform of the nation's financial system to safeguard against future depressions.
To act or not to act, a man named Herbert Hoover was the sitting U.S. president when the stock market crashed in 1929. He felt that the government should not take strong action to deal with heavy investor losses and the succeeding effects that spread throughout the economy.
Franklin D. Roosevelt was elected in 1932, and he had other ideas. Roosevelt worked to create a lot of federal programs through his New Deal to help those suffering the most from the Depression. Besides programs built to help those directly affected by the Great Depression, The New Deal included legislation intended to correct the situations that led to the stock market crash of 1929. Two prominent actions were at the New Deal created long-term programs that led the security, puts the people back to work, and it created the framework for a regular state that will protect the interest of all Americans, rich, poor, and thereby help the business system work in more productive ways.
New Deal programs helped improve the lives of people suffering from the events of the Depression. In the long run, New Deal programs set a precedent for the federal government to play a key role in the economy and social affairs of the nation. The New Deal also brought on reforms in industry, agriculture, finance, water power, labor, and housing, vastly increasing the scope of the federal government's activities in these areas.
The negative effects during the New Deal was that African Americans had lower paying jobs while the whites were the first to get good jobs and got paid more than the African Americans. Many of the Americans had no jobs because there weren't any job openings during the Great Depression, which left many people homeless during that time. Money was hard to give for the people that were working because bank failures were happening around America. There were also business closures, hunger strikes, political instabilities, and more. Several organizations created by New Deal programs and those operating under the original name are the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the Federal Crop Corporation, the Federal Housing Administration, and the Tennessee Valley Authority.
When Franklin Delano Roosevelt became president in 1933, he came into the White House with a plan. The New Deal had 3 goals: relief, recovery, and reform. Relief meant that the president wanted to help those in crisis immediately by creating jobs, breed lines, and welfare. Recovery was aimed at fixing the economy and ending the Depression. Reform was President Roosevelt's objective of finding the source of the Depression and creating a plan so that it would never happen again. When President Roosevelt accepted the nomination for president in 1932, the first line of his acceptance speech said, I pledge myself to a new deal for the American people. This is more than a political campaign. It is called to arms.
There are many programs that President Roosevelt and Congress created to fight the Depression. But together they are all called the New Deal. Because of this speech, many historians still argue about what ended the Great Depression, but most agree that it was not the programs begun under the New Deal. The programs of the New Deal did help people in the United States. However, it helped them find homes and work and helped to keep them from starving. The New Deal is also responsible for many of the roads, bridges, electrical wires, buildings, and art that we all use and love to this day. In the long run, the New Deal sets programs for the federal government to play a key role for the economic and social affairs of the nation. The Great Depression ended because men had to build and make tanks, guns, battleships, armored cars, explosives, planes, and uniforms for World War II.
The Great Depression really affected American culture, leading to a shift towards themes of hardship, social consciousness in art and literature, a rise in radio popularity, and a more careful lifestyle with lasting effects, including a greater focus on government social programs and a heightened awareness of economic equality in the long term. It expanded the power of the federal government by establishing regulators, bodies, and the foundation of a social welfare system.
Thank you for listening to the Two Brain Cells. We hope you enjoyed the news about the New Deal.